everyone, we are Group SGD10. Our topic today is inflation about housing. Nowadays the price of house are increasing and stubbornly high.
What does inflation means?
Let's watch this video to find out.
Refer to Fernando. Inflation is the gradual loss of purchasing power that is reflected in a broad rise in prices for goods and services over time.
For example, in 2014, the average price of a house in Malaysia was 300,000 ringgit. After 10 years, in 2024 it has risen to 500,000 ringgit. This situation indicates that inflation has occurred.
Refer to Fernando. Inflation rate is calculated as the average price increase of a basket of selected goods and services over 1 year. High inflation prices of goods increasing quickly, while low inflation is growing more slowly. When prices decline means that deflation occurs and people's purchasing power increases. Inflation rate can be calculated by current year of CPI minus previous year's CPI, then divided by previous year's CPI and multiply by 100%. While CPI means Consumer Price Index.
There are two types of inflation. One of them is demand pull inflation. As Williams says that demand pull inflation describes how demand for goods and services can drive up their prices. And Fernando thinks that this inflation occurs when there is an increase in money supply and credit boosts overall demand for goods and services faster than the economy can produce them. This heightened demand causes prices to rise. When consumers have more money, their positive sentiments leads to increased spending and further driving up prices. As demand outstrips supply, prices for goods, including housing and utilities, increase. Next is the cost push inflation, which also known as new inflation. As Jellison University says that cost push inflation is a type of inflation that increases production costs, and this reflected first to the consumer then to the whole economy. This inflation is determined by supply-side factors such as higher wage push, profit push and higher cost of raw materials. For example, when the wages rate increases, the production cost increases. Hence, the developers increases the price of house to maintain the profit. Same as the price of bricks and cement, which are the raw materials to build a house.
What are the causes of inflation?
Refer to Latif, Rizwan, Rosani, and Salid. They tell that there are 4 causes for inflation, which are foreign direct inflation, gross domestic product, interest rate, and unemployment.
Foreign direct inflation is also called FDI. According to Latif, Rizwan, Rosani, and Salah, FDI is the inflation caused by foreigners investing in estates and property in a country. This will drive up prices of houses and reduces home ownership. This will cause the resident must rent a house rather than buy.
How gross domestic product, GDP, cause inflation? GDP influences house prices, and rising house price can create a wealth-boosting consumer spending, increasing aggregate demand, and leading to higher real GDP and economic growth. Koch, Ismail, and Lee argued that the impact of real GDP on house prices and transaction volumes is stronger and lasts longer. GDP does not have a direct effect on house prices. If the housing market collapses, it could spread through the economy and reduce GDP.
The other cause of inflation is interest rate. Interest rate are controlled and monitored by the Central Bank of Malaysia, which known as Bank Negara Malaysia (BNM). BNM will increase or decrease the interest rate to control the liquidity and economic growth and ensure the stability of economic. When interest rate is decreased, the interest charged and cost of mortgage will decrease. This will lead to more people prefer to buy houses. As Galapur says that when the demand of houses increases, the price of houses will increase and cause inflation of housing. Malik and Mahalik states that higher interest rates increase mortgage costs, leading to more people renting instead of buying property. This can result in more sellers and fewer buyers, causing house prices to fall. Then Koch, Ismail and Lee think that when interest rates are high, people tend to save more and spend less, which can further reduce property purchases due to economic conditions and income concerns. Ong, Galapur, Choi, Ho and Mac found there is no significant link between interest rates and house prices, arguing that demand and supply imbalances can make interest rates less relevant. Moreover, Golapur, Lean, Tajuddini, Pham, Wang, Kobliakova, Tiwari and Croucher suggest that factors such as foreign investment, economic activity, and financing options, along with interest rates, are important determinants of housing prices.
The next causes of inflation is unemployment. The impact of unemployment on housing price can be shown in two sides, which are demand side and supply side. On the demand side, which also means home buyers, unemployment causes a financial constraint which lowers the ability to buy a house as household is unable to afford the cost entering the housing market. Refer to Goldman, Boyatsis and McKee. When unemployment rate decreases, purchasing power increase. Hence, demand of house increases and lead to increase of housing price.
On supply side, which are the homeowners who are willing to sell their house, YING, Kobliakova, Tiwari and Croucher thinks that when unemployment rate increases, it reduces the expectations of job security. This makes homeowners less willing to sell their house. It is because there is a possibility of not being able to buy a new one, as there are possibility to be unemployed. And Cyrilone says that housing supply will be decreased and price will increase. This shows concern about future unemployment may lead to reduced housing market activity.
To reduce the impact of unemployment to housing price, government can undergo intervention by increasing the supply of affordable housing. It can help the unemployed individuals re-enter the workforce. Then Mohan, Hudson, McDonald and Lin think that it can make property purchases more attainable and boost housing market activity in Malaysia.
Mohan, Hudson, McDonald, and Lin says that positive shocks to unemployment immediately lower housing prices and higher unemployment discourages individuals from purchasing houses. Moreover, Cyrilone thinks that unemployment is significant and negatively affects house prices, aligning with expectations. However, Wang, Kobliakova, Tiwari, and Croucher says that unemployment rate shows an insignificant impact on housing prices, with affordability potentially alleviated by lower unemployment and higher incomes.
There are some impacts on inflation. According to Worthington, high inflation will increase the cost of construction materials. Construction teams face higher expenses for building houses or renovating existing ones. Then Nguyen states that increase of construction costs spill into housing market, which raises prices for new builds. Builders may set higher price to offset the rising cost of building materials and labor.
The next impact of inflation is mortgage rate rises. According to JP Morgan and Pressman, inflation will cause higher monthly payments for mortgages and reduces affordability for potential homebuyers. But this depends on the mortgage terms and type. Now let us navigate Malaysia's housing market trend in 2024.
How Malaysia's economy performed in 2023 and the first half of 2024.
Refer to the graph from Global Property Guide. In 2023, Malaysia economy grew by 3.7%, but in second quarter of 2024, there was a strong rebound with a 5.9% growth. The economy is projected to grow by 4% to 5% for the year. In the leading up to second quarter of 2024, Malaysia House Price Index showed a modest 0.88% increase year-on-year. This is much lower than the 3% to 4% growth we saw in previous year. When adjusted for inflation, the real house price fell by 1.1%. Even more notably, there was a 2.1% decrease in house prices.
Furthermore, from the graph taken from Global Property Guide, house prices in Malaysia and Kuala Lumpur grew rapidly from 2011 to 2014 but slowed down over time. Since 2020, prices have been mostly flat or declining, with Kuala Lumpur experiencing a sharper drop than the rest of Malaysia. The next graph, also taken from Global Property Guide, shows the rental price index. Rental prices were stable from 2018 to 2020, dropped slightly during 2020 to 2021, and started rising steadily from 2022 onward, then reaching their highest level in early 2024.
Next, let us talk about the current housing market and inflation in Malaysia. Malaysia's housing market is currently facing significant challenges, particularly for first-time homebuyers. Rising in inflation, high living costs, and increasing interest rates makes it more difficult for many people to save for down payments and manage mortgage payments. Additionally, sustainability has become a key consideration for homebuyers, with a growing demand for eco-friendly properties and green commuting options. However, there is a hope for change. According to Bernama, the increasing demand for government support along with initiatives like Madani Deposit program could provide crucial relief developments and providing financial assistance. Malaysia can address these challenges and make homeownership more accessible for future generations.
What policies that government adopt to reduce house price inflation?
The government policies are fiscal policies, monetary policy, subsidy, tax, and interest rates.
First of all, fiscal policies. Fiscal policies refer to government strategies that impact the nation's economic conditions, such as tax rates, government spending, and public debt management, aimed at promoting economic growth and stability, which refer to Horton and El-Ghanimi. In housing, tax breaks for homeowners can increase housing demand and potentially drive up housing prices. Refer to Miles, housing activity can reduce the effectiveness of fiscal policy due to crowding out. If housing were more stable, fiscal stimulus would have a stronger impact. From Roslan we know that Malaysia has implemented national housing policy on 2018 to 2025. It is to make housing more affordable through planning, development and management.
Next, monetary policy. Refer to Suman K. Monetary policy is the changes in supply of money and credit to influence the supply, cost and use of money and credit. He also said that this action is taken by Central Bank BNM with the help of monetary techniques to achieve specific objectives. How this policy works. Refer to Matai, this is done when short-term government debt is exchanged with private sector. It is more sensitive to monetary policy in housing activities than non-residential investment. Then Miles says that fiscal expansion will lead to ambiguously greater crowding out of housing activity than non-housing investment. He also says that housing appears more sensitive to policy shocks than non-housing capital spending. When monetary policy loosens, housing demand increase and followed by increase in house price. Otherwise, when monetary policy tightens, housing demand decrease and also house price. Refer to monetary policy, BNM Monetary Policy Commit MPC implementing monetary policy by adjusting policy interest rate on housing activities.
Then is the subsidy. From CFI team, subsidy is a benefit that is given to individuals or business. It usually is in form of cash or tax reduction. Subsidy is given to remove some type of burden. For example, in housing activities, stamp duty exemption will be given by government to reduce the burden of first-time house buyers to help them buy their first house. Other than that, when government give or increase subsidies that given to real estate developer, the construction cost will decrease. Hence the price of houses will decrease and housing inflation is reduced. As my GOV states that my home scheme is a subsidy given by government to private developers to encourage them to build more affordable houses.
Continued by tax. What is tax? From Investopedia, we know that taxes are mandatory contributions levied on individuals or corporations by a government entity, whether local, regional, or national. Tax revenues are used on government activities, including public works and services such as roads, schools, or programs. Example of taxes are income tax, corporate tax, sales tax, property tax, tariffs, and stamp duty. MOHAMAD and Tangle states that taxes as either a supportive services or a burdensome imposition is a critical aspect of the socio-economic perspective. For housing activities, stamp duties on buyers make house transactions more expensive. This will discourage speculative buying and reducing excess demand. When government reduce the collection of tax such as income tax from individuals, the cash on hand will increase. This reduce the impact of inflation of housing and people can own a house more easily. When tax like tariffs increase, it will increase the cost of construction and lead to increase of the price of housing. Refer to BNM, Real Property Gains Tax, RPGT, can dampen overinvestment and speculative activities in the housing market by reducing net return on property investments.
The last government policies is interest rates. Interest rates is also make decision by Central Bank BNM, refer to ALAFIF, interest rate have significant impact on various financial decisions such as borrowing, investing, and saving. And refer to FADZLI, when interest rate decreases, this will encourage people to borrow money from banks because of the lower interest and lower borrowing cost. Then the demand of housing might increase and the price will increase. For example, overnight policy rates, OPR. According to Property Guru, a higher OPR makes it more expensive to borrow money, which can limit access to capital and impact housing sector.
Now, let us end up our video with a conclusion. In this video we know about the definition of inflation, where inflation is a gradual loss of purchasing power which reflected in broad rise of goods and services over time. Then, there are two types of inflation which are demand pull inflation and cost push inflation. Furthermore, in this video we also talk about the causes of inflation which are FDI, GDP, interest rate and unemployment. Next, we continued by the impact of inflation which are increase in prices for construction materials and houses. With inflation, mortgage rates rises and cause higher monthly payments and reduce affordability for potential homebuyers. Besides, we had discussed about the current issues about inflation. In second quarter of 2024, Malaysia House Price Index increased but lower than previous years. When adjusted for inflation, which is real house price had fell by 1.1%. Next, the rental prices had reached the highest level in early 2024. Moreover, government had give support like Madani Deposit program to make homeownership more accessible to Malaysian. Finally, we have government policies on inflation. Where they are fiscal policies, monetary policies, subsidy, tax and interest rates.
These are the references we used. The rough idea are from all of us.
However, storyboard is prepared by Joey, Sarah, Daya, Natalie and MUBEEN.
And this video is prepared by ALEECYA, ASYRAF, FAKHRUL, YING, and CHEONG. Thanks for watching.